kind of always never done a ton of traveling for a lot of various reasons. Kind of like accepted that as part not being able to do, like my brother when he was between his second and third year in law school, traveled with his law school buddy across Europe for 6, 8 weeks and had this trip of all these adventures that I always would try to. I was never exactly jealous of, but tried to live vicariously. I've always tried to live
Mhm.
vicariously through other people's stories. I pay a lot of attention
Mhm.
to other people's travel stories and and stuff. Pat, you might want to mute your camera too, or mute not your camera, but mute your sound. I think you're um the and so I kind of accepted that as part of the loss of my disability because one of the things that I find in traveling planning is there's a line I was talking to Joy yesterday and she said this line, I don't know, it was just kind of a line that you don't have to do it alone, right? You don't have to do all the planning, all the logistics. There's the logistics sides, but the fact that it's, anyone that travels, whether you travel with a disability or not, it's there's work. It's not for the faint of heart, especially the more out there you go to different places. So no matter what, it's got built-in complexity, right? And I think just like too much, I think in my lifetime, I've just accepted the loss of travel as just part of my injury, kind of like different things, like going up to the upstairs of my friends' houses and all these things you just accept as just part of what's happening. And what's wonderful about the emerging awareness of disability in this culture, not just curb cuts and stuff, but like organizations like Wheel the World, organizations that are being founded by people that really understand. If you travel with someone with a disability, which I'm guessing most people on the call have, because they travel with themselves, right? There's a level of complexity and stress to it that is unavoidable. It's true for everyone, but it's different when you live with a disability. So the fact that there are emerging organizations that are trying to help that, and as you'll see in the video at the end of Joy's presentation, we're not all just trying to go have crazy adventures. Sometimes we're just trying to get to Chicago or get to a museum. We don't have to go up to the top of Mount Everest, right? Not all of us, especially at our age, some of our ages on the call, we're not just adventure seeking. So with no further ado, the other thing about travel, the value of travel is such an interesting thing. I've always felt, and this is like I've always wanted, but it's not like enough for me to go do it. The fact that things are so different, right? That like one extreme example in the Southern Hemisphere, the sky's all different, but the way that people cultures form and like the water goes down the drain in an opposite way, but also just the way that when I did a couple of times I've been to Europe, the way that they just see the world differently and it's refreshing. We get stuck in our own roots, in our own ruts of how we think about the world. And so there's the variety of it, and there's a lot of ways to live a life. And when you travel, you get to see some of that. It's kind of like learning a foreign language, which is another thing I've never done because I'm an idiot, right? I've been living in my rut. So, without further ado, there's something about travel and trying to make it be an experience that we can all have that's so important. So, we found Wheel the World because I've been thinking about trying to do more travel too. And so we came across it. Actually, Molly found this organization and we just thought, dang, we should all talk about this. So Joy, will you come with me onto the screen? Thanks for joining us. You got to unmute. Yeah, there you go. We so thanks so much. Will you just take just give us your role with Wheel the World, and then we'll jump into the personal side of it.
Absolutely.
Um,
So, my role with Wheel the World is I work on partnerships and with our community. And so that means I work with people like the Reeve Foundation and the Amputee Coalition, so different organizations like that. But then also, we have a huge community at Wheel the World. So, We have everyone write this down, the Facebook Accessible Travel Community. It's a community of about 40,000 people, just like y'all, all experiencing some form of disability, and but they all still really have a desire for travel. And so I manage that community, and we share lots of things that we're doing about Wheel the World in the community, but also it's a place where people chat and say, I'm going to Rome. What's the best, most accessible things that you found to do in Rome? Or, I'm going to Chicago and need to rent a Hoyer lift. Like, so it's different types of things, whether it's in the States or overseas. People are just sharing and asking questions of how to travel easier. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
Just with 40,000 people, it's not a big
Yeah,
deal.
it's my best
Yeah,
friend.
seems like an easy job.
Add you
Yeah,
guys to the mix. It's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. All right, that's awesome. So, part of I want to talk a little bit about that. You know this also from the inside, right? So tell me, and then I would love to see the beginning of the slideshow where you get to see pictures of you and your one, right?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
how did you get interested in this?
So I got interested in this because, well, my degree in college is I'm a recreation therapist. So I've always been interested in disability, but the way I got interested in hold on one second. There we go. The way I got interested in travel and accessibility is because of my husband. So a little bit about me is this is my husband and I. He is a C6-7 quadriplegic. So that means he broke his neck. He has biceps and some triceps, but doesn't have a lot of like finger function like this. His hands kind of look like this because his contractors work more than his extensors. So we've been married for 30 years in June. 30 years of bliss, of
Hey,
course, right? For everyone that's been married, I'm sure, like, of course, every year is bliss, right? And we have twins that are 23 years old. And I've always just been a huge love of like huge traveler. And so when I got married, my husband,
fraternal or identical?
fraternal, I have a boy and a girl.
Cool. Keep going. I'm always
Um,
curious about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so my husband loved to travel too. So it's just something that has been a part of our lives for the past 30 years. And I don't know if anybody here has more of a progressive illness, but my husband's for the first 25, no, he's been in a chair for 40 years. The first 35 years, he was kind of the same. And the past few years, he's progressed and has less function. So he used to use a manual chair, like this wheelchair is a manual chair, and now he uses a power chair. And so travel has been a lot harder the more he's used a power chair. And so now that has been giving us even more of a need for an accessible travel. So that is who I am. I love to garden. If anybody out there likes to garden, I love to garden. And then also I started hosting a podcast with Wheel the World. And if you write this down, it's called Travel Talk with Joy. And it's where I have interesting people on my show that have disabilities and love to travel. And Matthew, you were saying about how your brother was a big traveler and he did that summer abroad. Well, I had one woman on, and this woman, not an exaggeration, she has been to 150 countries and she uses a wheelchair full time.
Holy
And
cow.
she's just a massive, she doesn't travel because, oh, every day is a fun day. She travels because she loves to see cultures and just wants to see the world. And she uses a wheelchair. So, just because someone has a disability doesn't mean that you have to experience life a certain way.
Right.
So, today I'm just excited to talk to you guys about accessible travel and answer any questions too.
Very cool. And then talk a little bit about the founder
Yes.
of Wheel the World.
So, okay, so we talked a little bit about this experience, traveling with a disability. You guys said, Pat, you were saying the hotels are hard, but our founder is right here. He's the guy that is in the orange wheelchair. So our founder, he and his friends were, he got injured when he was 18, but he and his friends went to Patagonia and they decided, let's do this amazing adventure. Well, the amazing adventure was really hard to plan. And they took kind of like a little skeleton film crew with them on this trip. And this is one that's called the W Trek. It's in Patagonia in Chile. And it was so epic when they came down, they posted it on YouTube and it kind of went viral. And they were like, wow, okay, this is why we went to business school. We're going to make a travel platform for people with disabilities. And this is our owner that has done that. So his name is Alvaro Silverstein. He also is a C6 quadriplegic, full-time wheelchair user. He also is super smart. He got his MBA at Berkeley, is specializing in um, more technology. And so when they said they wanted to do something for people with disabilities and travel, it wasn't going to be, we're going to have a travel agency. And they said, no, we want something bigger than that. We want it to be like Travelocity. For those of you that use Travelocity or Expedia, that's what they have developed.
Hmm.
And this
Very.
is what it looks like. So, you know,
Well, we're gonna definitely put the links to this in the chat too. So check that.
perfect.
And the other thing
So,
for everyone to know, Joy very graciously is going to allow this slideshow because we're not going to do all of it, this presentation to be shared. So you all get to see this too. So that's going to be shared too.
um, what they really found is that there's so many problems out there with information. And I don't know if you guys have tried booking your own travel, but you go on Bonvoy Marriott's website and it says accessible room. And so you click the accessible room. Well, we used to do this all the time, and half the time we arrived, the accessible room wasn't the accessibility my husband needed. Or they gave the room away to somebody else because somebody else didn't leave their room. Like there were so many things that happened with the accessible room. The bed wasn't the right height. The shower, it wasn't the right kind of shower he needed. And so it's unusable. And I don't know how many of you guys know this, but the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, doesn't even address bed height. And it's kind of like, well, isn't that kind of central to staying in a hotel room? Is the bed height is something you can get in?
Yeah,
So that was where they said we got to do something different.
very cool. Right, right. So go a little bit. So the first part of this, she's going to go kind of go through about some of the things that Wheel the World actually does, right? That's how we got it, like the
Yeah.
nuts and bolts, and then we're going to expand into more story and questions.
So we do hotels, we do things to do, multi-day trips and group tours. And you know, I'm not sure what the average age is here, but the average age on our group trip is 71.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I don't want people thinking, oh, I'm past that. I'm too old for that. Some people might feel they are, but actually, we have so many of our travelers that that's the age. So we will get into what that looks like, but these are kind of the four areas that we concentrate. Um, and the first thing is the hotels. It's can you get in the bed and can you take a shower? Those are the two primary things for hotels. And because the information out there just isn't accurate, what we said that we're going to do is we're going to measure. So we're out there, we've been into over 2,500 hotel rooms now, and we're measuring how high is the bed. My husband wants a 25-inch high bed. Other people want a much higher bed. Now that my husband uses a power chair, he actually, if he's using his power chair, he wants a 30-inch high bed. So, we see how high the bed is. We see how much room is under the bed. Anybody here use a Hoyer lift? You need to have room under the bed so you can get your lift under the bed. And we measure that. We measure the bathroom. What is this? Is there a fold down bench? Um, what is the turning radius? If there's a roll-in shower, some people here might like a roll-in shower. We know what the turning radius is because we're measuring it ourselves. We don't take Marriott, Hilton, we don't take anybody's word for it. We go in and measure it, and the hotel lets us do it, which is great. Have you guys had experiences in the past where hotel rooms have not been good for you?
Oh, yeah. You can all nod, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's one of the most frustrating things when you're excited to go on a vacation and you get there and you're like, this isn't going to work for us. My husband and I were in a hotel room down in Miami, super nice hotel a couple months ago. We changed the room 3 times because the first one wasn't accessible. The second one, they put us in some corner room with zero view, and we were supposed to be at this beautiful beach romantic hotel. I'm like, no, this isn't good enough. Do better. So it's not just, the accessibility, it's the experience. We want the
Right.
same experience that my sister and her husband get when they go on a trip with us. And don't put me in a corner room with no view just because
Right
someone,
by the ice machine or the
yes.
or the air conditioning. I mean, there are all these things that handicap rooms get put in interesting places, but keep going.
Yeah, no, it's the worst places. So like I said, this is what we're doing. We're measuring over 200 data points on hotels. So we're not just, measuring the room. We're going to if there's a restaurant, we're seeing how high is that table because some people that use power chairs, they can't get under a table because their knees are too high. So we want to see what is their experience when they go to the hotel dining room. Is there a pool with a lift? Because a lot of people they need a pool with a lift, and we see if that's working. That's the other thing. They might have it, but is it working? Um, everything from is the front desk lowered, like anything that makes it feel normalized and included. We want travelers to have that information. Um, it's it's a lot of information that we check, but we want travelers to come knowing everything about the hotel they're about to get to. And then this is the part that really is amazing. So you go to our website, you book your hotel in Chicago when you're going there. You make sure that it's the one that's the accessible one for you, not the accessible one for someone that has different needs. And then our travel planners contact the hotel. They ensure you get the room. You don't do any more follow-up phone calls. Um, Everything is done through our end. So then when you arrive, it's exactly the room that you've booked, not just the accessible room. And this has not happened to us. I'm sure it will because business happens sometimes that doesn't go right. But if you arrive and either your room has been given away or it's not the accessible room that you booked, you get your money back. And that's how much our owner stands behind this process. And it takes trusting Wheel the World, and it takes a little bit of changing your habit. It took me a little bit. I've been working here now 2 years, and it took my husband and I. We always used to go to Bomboy app, and even though our results weren't always great, we didn't know any different. We didn't know any better, and it's kind of taken us a process of changing our routine. Of okay, now we go to Wheel the World and we see what they have in the city, and if they aren't in the city, then I contact them and say, what can you find me in Podunk, Iowa? So it takes a little bit of changing your habit, but we have a guarantee and nobody else has that guarantee. So it just takes so much stress off us.
Right.
But the other thing, and this is another thing that blew me away when I found out about Wheel the World, is we have vacation packages and group tours in some really interesting spots. This again is my husband and I are the trademarks of this presentation. But this is in San Sebastian in northern Spain, and we had gone with a trip with Wheel the World to Madrid. We got on a train, we went straight north, and this is called San Sebastian, and it's this beautiful, accessible boardwalk, very accessible community, right on the coast, just amazing. And I would have never known anything like that was available without going through someone like Wheel the World. What
I
are
think
some
I want to
places
go.
that you guys have on your list that you would like to travel?
Put that in your chat and we'll
Yeah.
like pop it in. Yeah, yeah.
Um, because when I started, working at Wheel the World, I didn't even know that some of the places that we went would be accessible. And so I always did those like, oh, those are the trips I'd take without my husband. I'd take my daughter or my son and I'd go on a girls' trip.
So
But
just quickly, so you know, it's
yeah,
Paris, Iceland, Ireland, Acropolis, New York City, Banff, So this is like, so I'm just letting you
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah.
country in Italy, Portugal. So just to give you some of the places that they're thinking about. So keep going. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to let
No,
you.
I'm glad you told me all those
Yeah.
because literally, except for Ireland, my husband and I have been to all of those, and he has been to all of those in a wheelchair.
See, you're inspiring me right now. Holy cow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible finding out about accessible travel because I was kind of getting to the point, if I'm being honest, where I was like, oh, it's getting too hard. Like maybe we'll just go to Hawaii because Hawaii's kind of easy. Everything's accessible in places like Hawaii and Florida. Um, so it's opened up and made it freer for me as a wife and made my husband feel like more comfortable too because he's not like, shoot, we arrive in this place and it's inaccessible. No, when we go with the wheel of the world, they plan the things and so it's accessible. Kim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I actually just went to Empower Fest in Phoenix, Arizona, and stayed at the Gila Resort. I was shocked how accessible that hotel was. Because
Hmm.
I've never had that good of a hotel room to be that accessible. The bed was even lower and everything. So I'll definitely share that. But we went to a place called Ability 360. Have you heard of it?
I
And
have. I've not done anything with it, but I've heard of it. It's a is
It's
it a
it's
community center?
state of the it's state of the art accessible gym, and they have a rock climbing wall. They have uh, wheelchair basketball. They had swimming lessons. They had everything. When I was there with Hanger Clinic, I went there. I heard that you guys are that Will the World is in charge or of the travel for Amputee Coalition in January. I want to say, yay.
Yeah.
I actually got to get on a horse with help, but I got on a horse. I saw quads get on horses. I saw people in wheelchairs get on horses without. It was the most beautiful experience. Just once I did that, I was like, well, now I want to try this and I want to do this, and I want to be an accessible travel writer someday. Because I live in Indiana and I discovered how inaccessible a lot of places are where I live. So I work for East Tourism sometimes. They have me go up to their northeast counties or whatever. I go to certain events in small towns or something like that, and they'll say, what do we need to do to make this more available for people that can enjoy this but are in wheelchairs or this, that, and the other. And small towns with old buildings and old sidewalks can be a challenge.
Right.
So
You know,
I,
they
that
they
that is
they
my dream someday to
I love
just
that dream.
because I'm
That's awesome.
single, I'm 58, I've been an amputee for 15 years, and I was like, it's my time. And I've flown Delta the last few times, and I'm very impressed. So I feel comfortable with that airline. I've flown Southwest. I feel comfortable with that airline, but I have heard some complaints about smaller airlines, that kind of thing. But
Do
That's
you use
but
awesome.
manual or power chair?
So,
no, I don't. I normally don't use a wheelchair when I travel. I just rent one when I get there, or a scooter, electric scooter, which is what I rented this time.
I'm
that's
And it's
speaking at that conference.
that's very
huh?
cool.
I'm speaking at the Amputee Coalition conference.
Yeah, we met last year at the Atlanta conference, and I've seen you several other Zoom meetings talking about travel. And what's ironic is several of us said, we need to get together and write our own book on travel because we need to make people aware that we're not all the same,
This is
you
awesome.
know.
So we got another hand up and we got a lot of presentations. So thanks, Kim. We become a travel writer. We need you, right? That would be awesome. Laura, your hand's up.
Yeah, so just this background, I have multiple sclerosis and I'm actually very fortunate in that I still walk even though it's not like meaningful walking. So I use a very transportable mobility scooter And even when presented with, what would mostly be an unacceptable, uh, accessible room, I usually can manage to make it work. But want to add something to the inquiry because I haven't been able to figure anything out for this because many people with MS have issues with incontinence. And let's just say I've actually found that more restrictive because, we all have to drink a certain amount in order to be healthy. I happen to be extremely, extremely incontinent.
Can I
So
give you
for
one piece of advice with
sure.
it? Looks like a lot of women are on this chat. So men, hold off for a minute. You're here. But this is the biggest deal of how to change the incontinence issue. And this is a major, this is a surgery. So one of my friends, she's paraplegic. She has been to 80 countries, humongous traveler, but was two things, having some problems with incontinence, but also having to go to the bathroom on an airplane is very difficult. And caffeine as a woman, she uses catheters, is very difficult to do it discreetly where a man can, pee in a Gatorade bottle at his chair. So there's a procedure called a Mitrofanoff procedure. And basically, you end up cathing through like a belly button. And so you can do it anywhere. You don't have to go to the bathroom. I was with her in Chile and she did it on a van. Took her 2 seconds. She has said it's the most, it's given her so much independence and confidence because she doesn't have to worry about leaking all the time. And I talk to travelers all the time, and for the travelers that they're like, well, I don't want to do that procedure because it is a big procedure, but they're like, for whatever reason, maybe they can't do it because of insurance or whatever. A lot of our travelers that are women that don't have that procedure, they use a Depends and they use a double pad on their Depends. So, even though, yeah, no one wants to be wearing Depends all the time, but if your choice is wear Depends with two extra pads in case of leakage or not travel, a lot of our people say, I would just rather do the Depends with extra pads because it's a huge problem, Laura. I understand.
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I just want to say that I've worked with pelvic floor physical therapists. I have a urogynecologist. I've been through all the procedures that were made available to me. I pretty much failed at self-catheterizing, so that didn't become an option to use the Botox. And nobody's ever even mentioned this to me before. Are there medical, um, and what's the barriers to this? How can I have been dealing with all these experts and nobody's mentioned this to me?
I don't know. Like, I don't know how this translates with MS, so I can't, I'm not a medical person in that way, but I put the name of the procedure in the chat. And if you wanted to talk to someone that had it, like my friend, she is such a proponent of this because of her, the independence that she now has because of it. I could, if you want to, I'm Joy at wheeltheworld.com. So if anybody wants to chat about anything, Joy at wheeltheworld.com. Oh, Stephanie, there you go. You can talk to Stephanie. Um, I'm free to chat about anything.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Let's keep on because believe it or not, not believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff that could be coming here, right? So let's keep moving a little bit. This is awesome though. Um, Joyce, can you pick back up a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about where people like to travel, and I was just saying, like, this is what I saw, and I was just going, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't know that Greece could be accessible for me, or South Africa, Costa Rica, Machu Picchu. Like, really, I could go to Machu Picchu. It made me feel hopeful when I first saw this of all the things that we could do. And some people here might say, I don't want to go for a lifetime around the world, trip of a lifetime. I want to stay within a couple hours of where I live. And so these are some other places that we have developed, in the US, some really great trips. My husband and I went to Miami recently and stayed in a hotel that Wheel the World had measured. And then we went on an accessible art food tour that was so much fun. And I didn't have to, be calling the person being like, so are the places accessible that we're going to see? Like they had already been vetted as accessible. And
Right.
so it just relieved so much stress from me.
Right. Do you also on these trips like to the United States, do you have help with like in New York City, for example, trying to get a cab, trying to, make the transit, do you help that kind of in between transportation too?
Yes,
Or
we have
trips
travel
on it?
partners that we work with, not
Okay.
every single city, but in, most of major cities. If you go to our website and put the city in, it'll say if we have hotels, if we have accessible tours, and then
Yeah.
if we have accessible transportation. And we used to book the accessible transportation, but being the booker for it, number one, it created more fees for the traveler because it was, we had to make a
Okay.
teeny bit.
Hmm.
Um, but now we just share the links of who we recommend as vetted partners for the travel
That's awesome.
transportation. And one more thing about that with the hotels and costs. So people wonder, so how much more does it cost? But the reality is, if you go to book on Expedia, a hotel room in New York, or you go to Wheel the World and book the same hotel room in New York, it's the same price. We're a travel partner the same way that Expedia has partners like Marriott or anything like that. So, you know,
Awesome.
no, accessible travel is more expensive when you go to do trips. So I want to talk about that for a minute because everybody, I'm sure, is wondering how expensive are these trips? All depends on where you're going. But with accessible travel, unfortunately, you have accessible transportation. So if, you go on a trip to Barcelona and you need accessible transportation. So we booked that so that you can't get on the group bus that has 30 people that divide that between 30 people. So that's more expensive. And then also you're on a private tour. So, those type of things are going to be more expensive because you aren't splitting the cost of 30 people on a group trip as if you were going to be on a group trip with 30 people like you might see in Barcelona.
Hmm. That's cool.
Yeah. And let's talk about the group trips because I really feel for people that have not done a ton of travel since their disability. I love the group trips. This one is actually how I found out about Wheel the World. This is so my husband is on the left, the bald guy. Next to him is Corey Lee, and I want to make sure you write that name down. Curb Free with Corey Lee. Corey Lee is the most traveled um, influencer, content creator. He has something called spinal muscular atrophy, which SMA is like kind of like ALS, but you get it when you're a baby and you just slowly have decline over your whole life. And Corey is way outliving what people said that his life would be like. Next to him is a woman. That's actually the woman that had the Mitrofanov procedure. She's fabulous, spinal cord injury. And then next to her, I'm right there with a black hat. And then next to me is a woman that has SMA also. So we went on this group trip to Patagonia. I didn't know what to expect. This was before I knew Wheel the World. And so I just wanted to meet that guy, Corey, in the green wheelchair, because he was so interesting to me. He has a travel blog called Curb Free with Corey Lee, and he gets paid to travel all over the world and write about it. So for the one that wanted to be the travel writer, Corey Lee is your man. But this is what that trip looked like, and I did not do any planning. We had these beautiful vistas. We went downtown Santiago shopping, accessible shopping. They knew where that was. This center picture, that is my husband that is in a sling, and we are getting out of a hot springs in the middle of nowhere in Chile. They took us there. We had accessible transportation. This is an accessible museum. And all this was planned, and I didn't do any of it. And I arrived and I was so nervous when I arrived because I thought there's no way this is going to be accessible, because I'm the planner, I'm the one in control. Everything was done, even to the height of his bed that he wanted. Because at the time, my husband was in a manual chair. He wanted a low bed. Corey Lee was also on this trip. He wanted a high bed. And they had the beds that we needed, not just the accessible room. It was incredible. What kind of questions would you guys have about these group trips?
So like, is it how planned is it, by the way? Like, so like you get up and you have events each day, or how much downtime, you know?
Well, what they like to do is because, I mean, some people with disabilities like to have more downtime. Like they don't want it to be like go, 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 go every day. So what they usually do is they usually have an activity, um, like a group activity in the day, and then in the afternoon, often there's some individual time. So if you want to do something on your own, so, maybe you don't want to be with the group 24/7, and then they have dinners at night that are optional. If you want to come as a group, you can, or if you want to go on your own, you can. But the really great thing about a group tour that is different than if you just booked a tour with you and a friend is on a group tour, a Wheel the World staff member is there. So if anything goes wrong, like Corey Lee, he does these group trips to Barcelona 2 years ago. He had 4 trips to Barcelona with 8 people on each trip, 4 people in wheelchairs and 4 companions. They show up for his first trip and the airlines broke his wheelchair. So he shows up, wheelchair broken, but there was a Wheel the World staff person there that was able to get him and his broken wheelchair to the wheelchair repair station or shop. They gave him a loaner chair for 2 days while they fixed his chair, and then the Wheel the World staff member got his chair back to him. So it's if you're all worried, like, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? The Wheel the World staff member is there for those type of things. They aren't there to help you shower. It's not like personal care assistant. But, if you just needed some help getting your bags from your hotel, that type of assistance they can do. And they're just kind of like the basic tour guide for the trip. Really, really fun. We've gone on 2 of these, one to Chile, that showed you that picture, and the other one was to Iceland.
Yeah, so by the way, like the fact that there'd be someone else there to troubleshoot when things go wrong, it makes me teary. I've had so many, right? Things go wrong at the wrong places. Um, I'm trying to see, there's new message. Are there any questions in there? I'm trying to see that I saw. Do many people go solo? It was one of the questions
Yes.
from Bevan.
Yes. So, on both trips that I went on so far, the group trips, there's been a solo traveler on each trip. The first trip, the one to Patagonia, the blonde-haired woman, she was a solo traveler. Um, and she needed help with her luggage, was the main help she needed, and that was provided, no problem. Second trip, there was a woman that she just kind of had a general she was older and used a scooter. She probably should have been with someone because she did need a little more help. But it's fun as a solo traveler because you have people then to have dinner with and have conversation with. And um, there's also something that I didn't understand this until I went on the group trip. There's a camaraderie about understanding the other people that have different disabilities, but it's like we know what each other's lives are. So if someone, needed a little extra time to get ready that morning, well, we understand it because sometimes my husband and I need a little extra time in the morning, something doesn't quite go right. So it's having that, oh, I get you, And so there's a camaraderie to that. And there's a camaraderie to the companions that were there. On both trips, there was some that were just friends that were the companion and some were their spouses, some were their a mom. But there's a camaraderie in being a companion also. And I was very surprised at how much my husband and I both enjoyed that aspect of the trip. So
Yeah,
if you're a
awesome.
solo traveler on the fence about this, go. You will love it.
Right. And then the other question in the chat was, are there many people traveling solo in the groups? I mean, no, that one, for meal restrictions, dietary restrictions. Are there meals for people with dietary restrictions?
Yes. I mean, our my direct boss, our director of marketing, he's vegan, and we have several vegetarians at our company, and so we're really sensitive to that to make sure that wherever we do go, it's not where okay, and here's our group meal and here's what everybody gets. It's we make sure that all dietary restrictions are communicated. If we're doing a group meal, to make sure that everybody has something that could be available for them, because I mean, part of travel is trying foods, and if you don't have any foods you can try, that makes your trip not as fun for sure.
That's awesome. So let's keep on keeping on.
Okay, so what has accessible travel done for us? This is a recent trip to Boston where, again, I used them for our rooms, I used them for transportation. I found an accessible ferry. Like it's 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 in each of these different instances, I want to tell you what it did. So let's talk about Rome. Accessible travel. The accessible tour operator knew exactly where they needed to drop us off in the van to be close to the Colosseum, which is this is the closest entrance to the elevator in the Colosseum. Otherwise, if you got dropped off at other places where most people are dropped off, you had a really long cobblestony push to get in that Colosseum, which my husband, that makes him cranky, cranky, cranky Bert. His name is Bert. Cranky Bert comes out when he has to be on cobblestones for too long. So,
Me too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. The other thing about this trip to Italy, and this where it really blew me away with our travel partners. So we took a 2-day trip from Rome to Florence. And this is exactly what happened. A Wheel the World partner came to our hotel, walked us to the train station, made sure that we got on the train with the accessibility services at the train. We arrive in Florence. The Wheel the World partner is there in Florence, meets us there, walks us to our hotel. We had a fun time in Florence. But then one day I wanted to go to a place called San Gimignano. You may know about it. It's in Tuscany, in kind of the hills, most beautiful old city. Well, the travel planner knew my husband was a manual wheelchair user, but this place is terrible cobblestones, and said, "Hey, before you get to San Gimignano, I want to ask your husband, would he like to rent a scooter for the day so he has more independence when he's there?" So that's next level because they're looking at what his disability is, what type of wheelchair he uses, and then that he's going to this place that has terrible cobblestones. And so, so before we even got to Italy, Bert had said, yes, that day in San Gimignano, I want to use a scooter. So they brought a scooter. He had a scooter for the day. And even though it poured on us rain the entire day in San Gimignano, it was so much easier because I wasn't having to push up these cobblestone hills and he wasn't feeling terrible about his experience. So that's what it does. This middle one, this is an ice glacier lagoon um in southern Iceland. And I would have never known that there was a boat that actually had an accessible ramp to get into it. I would have thought this isn't accessible. No, they had an accessible ramp to get in this. So it's those kind of details that accessible travel planners know. So whether you use Wheel the World, which I would recommend, but there's a couple others that I'm sure they can provide good information to. Use someone that understands the area and understands you. And this last one, this was a very, very smoggy day in Santiago, and we had taken this incline gondola all the way to the top of this beautiful mountain. View was not as good, but the accessible gondola, I would not have known even existed without the accessible travel planning of Wheel the World. It's been amazing. And
So
I,
great.
I feel like I'm like this person that's like, oh, throws up on people about accessible travel. But I want all of you guys to understand that you have so many options. People say, okay, well, what about money? And I agree, money is the barrier for everybody in travel. But in accessible travel, the number two barrier is fear. And that's where I want people to understand that I understand that it can be stressful, but some of that fear can be mitigated when you're doing it with an accessible travel partner.
For sure. My God.
Can I show you this video? Because I know our time is getting
That's all
short.
right. You don't suck, so we'll run over.
If anybody needs to go, do something else, but let's just share this. Tell me if you
There's
can't hear it.
there's another question in the chat.
Okay, what's our question?
Let me try to. Where the heck? Pass
It's
my.
it's about train travel.
Mhm.
Has
Oh yeah.
anyone done any train travel?
So, my experience on train travel has been limited to Europe, which Europe, it is very good. They have accessible waiting areas and they take you on and make sure that you get to the accessible train car with the accessible lift. And then when you get to your destination, there is a person that's the accessibility person for that train station. And it's very, very good. My husband just did it with just his friend, and they went to from Barcelona to Madrid to Valencia back to Barcelona. And everything great accessibility. I just took one called the Rocky Mountaineer in Canada. That was a very, very accessible experience. Highly recommend that. It's called the Rocky Mountaineer. That was a bucket list experience for me, and they blew it out of the water. Incredible. Accessible travel in the US with trains. Amtrak is trying to get better. I know that. Um, for me, it's hard because you have to justify taking a lot longer to get places. It's not as, Europe, it tends to be cheaper. In the States, Amtrak is not as cheap. And what's been a game changer for us with peace of mind is a travel chair that can fit on the airplane. And I know I didn't tell you about this, Matthew, but I do want to touch on this real quick because we've just had this for 1 year. Um, this has been a massive game changer for us. So my husband, like I said, he used a manual chair, then he used a power chair. So we're traveling with a power chair. It was breaking. It, it wasn't good. So we saw a guy last year in Mexico that had something called the travel bucky chair. And it was a foldable chair. And he told us, oh, yeah, it can be on the airplane a lot. And so my husband tried his chair. And then I did a lot of research finding other travel chairs that would work. And the travel chair that we ended up going on with is called the Jazzy Ultralight. It is 35 pounds. It folds up like this, like a stroller. The wheels don't pop off or anything, but I'm not exaggerating. My husband has probably taken 20 flights over the past year since he's had this chair. And the travel buggy, I mean the ultralight Jazzy has been able to go on every single flight except for 2 flights. Um, Europe 100% can go on those flights. Atlanta to LA, back and forth all the time, no problems. Um, every flight except for 2. And it only weighs, like I said, 32 pounds. The joystick comes off. So even if you have to put it underneath, like where they put the strollers and the wheelchairs, the joystick comes off, the battery pulls out, folds up like a stroller. And the main part that gets damaged is usually the joystick. So I cannot say enough how much this travel chair has changed things for us in the past year.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Holy,
And
yeah.
it doesn't do all the bells and whistles, his power chair at home, goes up, down, back, forward. It has a lot
Yeah,
more
yeah.
bells and whistles, but it weighs 450 pounds. You know,
Right,
the other thing is worst case scenario, like let's say we can't find an accessible van wherever we are. With this, he can hop in I say hop. I can help him transfer in a taxi and we can fold that power chair, that travel chair up, and it goes in the back of a cab. So it allows you much more options.
right.
And if he needs to go up a step or two, we're in Europe and he had to go up a step or two, he could get 4 guys to just pick the whole chair up. That's not an option with a 450-pound travel chair.
For sure.
So, let me know if you have any other questions about this, but this
We
is a
do.
constant
I mean,
chat in
I
our
think people are going to be following up with you after. I know I can vouch for myself here. So you will be hearing from me for sure.
in that travel group, people talk about these travel chairs all the time, asking for recommendations. And I'm always like, get a travel chair if you have the ability. And there's ones
Yeah.
that cost different amounts, but I would just go for what you can afford, but also look for a lot of reviews to make sure that that it has the wear and tear, because some of them, yeah, they fold up and they only weigh 20 pounds, but my husband's 220 pounds. And so he can't have some like little flimsy folding chair. It needs to be one that his is carbon fiber. It needs to be sturdy for him. So
Right.
I'll
All
get off
right.
my soapbox.
No, it's awesome.
Okay, can I share this? Good.
Please. Yeah, yeah.
If you want, we can talk about what led us to use wheels instead of legs. That way, we can tell you the sad version and version 2.0, which is even sadder. Or if you'd rather, we could do it like the movies, and we'll embellish everything with a tearful story of effort and determination. But there's something we have to tell you. We're not superheroes. We didn't feel like them when we climbed to over 2,430 meters above sea level, or in the most beautiful and incredible places in the world. Unlike superheroes, we thought the same thing anyone would. We felt grateful to be there because it made us understand several things. But before we start to tell you, could you please change the music? Because there in Machu Picchu, we realized that despite everything, this is not a cheap imitation of life. This is not a copy or a simulation. This is not a lake that longs with all its heart to be the sea. This, this, my friends, is life. Life at its fullest. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Believe us, we are saying this for every tear shed, for every person hugged. In flickering neon lights with fireworks lighting up the sky, life. Pack your bags, recover the ability to wonder, open your heart and let it explore. But even then, you won't be prepared for this because we are not inviting you to travel. We are inviting you to live.
That's awesome, but I couldn't at least hear the music. I don't know if anyone else could. So just so you know, the first part was before the Shasta changed the music was this really kind of solitary piano thing that was really sad. And it was like exactly all the things we've seen when you have like a TV station trying to get you to like when they talk about someone with disability. And then when they switch the music, they make it much more upbeat and like happening. That video is on their website. It
And
is.
I will also, it'll be in this presentation. So when you guys go back and watch this again, please watch that video. I'm so sorry. I thought that that
Because
should.
the music, the switch, it is the video is great. The music makes it dimensional in a way that
Yes.
it's worth seeing the whole thing. So before we start on to the next phase, this is the time to sit and contemplate and think about some real continuing questions for Joy right now. Because like what do you want to know? What do you want to think? Like even if it's not even for you or who knows, think of something because we got someone that knows a lot of stuff sitting right here right now. Pat, you're up, Pat.
Um, I
Hey,
several times trying to get hotels. The last time was in Chicago, and they want to charge me extra because it's an accessible room. I found this in Canada once and North Dakota once, and then just now in Chicago. Isn't that illegal to charge more for an accessible room?
I have never heard of that. That is crazy. Like that's, yeah, that's definitely, I think that's illegal. Like, unless I can see like if the category, they only had like the suite category available when their other ones were sold out, but no, that cannot happen.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's
fact that you've had that three times is intense because I've
It
never
is.
had that happen unless I don't know. They see me wheel in and they just up the
Well,
price.
yeah, you wouldn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the last time it was in Chicago, and said, "Oh yeah, no, we charge it." And I asked the question because it was so outrageous, and she said, "Yes, it's more because it's accessible." I went someplace else.
That's
Well,
that needs to be. They need to be social media'd by the 40,000 people in Wheel the World,
Yes, yes.
right?
absolutely. That is
Yeah.
insane. Well, please don't book through them anymore.
No, won't.
Now you book through Wheel the World, and we'll be able to help you make sure that that doesn't happen. That is absolutely insane.
Evan,
What's up?
well, I was going to go on to the next. We have like two more questions
Yeah, go
lining up.
ahead.
Okay, just
Evan,
real quick. So I'm not in a wheelchair, but I have MS and I use walking sticks and I get a lot of fatigue and I have a really hard time with stairs. I know when I was in Europe when I was younger, when I didn't have issues with my MS, there's so many stairs everywhere. So how do you, and not a lot of elevators and the hostels and things. So how do you all deal with stairs and elevators, I guess, or lack of elevators?
Yeah, I mean the partners that we work with, our tour operators, they know accessibility, and so I mean just in the same way like how I said in Rome that they knew the easiest way to get there because you kind of have a limited mobility situation,
Hmm.
and that's a lot of our travelers are like that. They may not be a C6 quadriplegic, but they have limited mobility due to
Mhm.
the MS, ALS, all the S's,
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. And so it's just the expertise of our partners of
Hmm.
knowing the accessible bathroom is in this route. And if they went this route, there's no accessible bathroom. So they just, they know because that's what they're there to know.
Yeah.
We send them to something called the Wheel the World Academy, our travel partners, where they learn about disability. They learn about, okay, what do I need to have to make my tour disability friendly? Every 2 hours need to have an accessible bathroom, um, you know, um, paths with ramps or, limited stairs, elevators, know where all that is. So our travelers aren't going like, okay, where's my route? Because they already know
Hmm.
for you.
Hmm. Thank you.
Angelique.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hi. I was the one who asked about the train travel. Um, and it was more about not just getting from point A to point B, but I really wanted to do, the whole overnight train and getting a train car thing. And
Well, on Amtrak, they do have some accessible trains that you can't go to the dining car. So that is one thing. But they have recently I just saw a whole thing where they did an accessible train experience. Person had their own like cabin for whatever or train car, and it had an accessible bathroom in it. So if you're talking about US train travel, there is that option. I just don't know is every route have that or there's certain routes? I'd be have to be more specific with Amtrak.
the Rocky Mountaineering, because I have family in Canada, so I would love to go.
The Rocky Mountaineer, it was so accessible. They had like push button bathroom doors, huge bathroom, and they had so Rocky Mountaineer is kind of like a scenic railway. And I know the Canadian Railway has other ones, but the one that we took, it was from Vancouver to Banff. So we did the whole Lake Louise
I'm
thing.
actually just going.
I,
I'm gonna like book that right. I mean, that's a trip that I would love to go on.
Well,
Holy cow.
I mean, it was like the beauty. I cried. I cried. It was so pretty. It was, you got
That's
on
a
it.
surprise for me, Joy, that you would actually be emotive.
What do you
And
mean?
I'm joking. That'd be
Oh,
my sarcasm.
I'm a
I'm
little
not
expressive.
surprised that beauty made you weep.
Oh, no, I'm
Right?
thinking about it now and crying right now. Um, it is so special. And you're on this train, and the idea that they made it be accessible for my husband. Oh, so the first floor, if you want to stay in your wheelchair, you stay in your wheelchair. But they also had an elevator. And the elevator took my husband up to the second floor to be the top train car, or a top train car over the dining car. And for that one, the guy helped him transfer to his seat so he could have that experience. Like it was unbelievable. And then they picked us up and like halfway you stop in something called Kamloops. Kamloops is a city in the middle of nowhere, Canada. But it's where you
Have
have to,
good
it's your
hockey.
halfway spot. Good hockey.
In Kamloops, British Columbia. Yeah.
I did not know that, but you had to stop there and they had accessible transportation to take us to our accessible hotel room. Rocky Mountaineer could have not done a better job. I actually just had a phone call with them because I'm like, we need to sell your product on Wheel the World. It's that good. And it's expensive. And that's my only feedback for them. But it was a very much a once in a lifetime for me to do that with Bert.
Yeah. I've
So
got a
there
lot.
isn't like a sleeping car on the Rocky Mountaineer.
The Rocky Mountaineer is not a a sleeping car train. That's the Amtrak has a sleeping car, and I think I haven't been on it yet, but I think the Canadian, it's called maybe the Canadian National Railway. I haven't been on it yet, but I think that one, because that one goes from all the way from east to west Canada.
Mm,
The one I went on, they specialize in like the picturesque parts.
yeah.
You know, breathtaking. Saw elk with antlers that you can't even understand. They were so big, I thought I was a moose. Bears, everything.
If you ever need somebody to go from east to west Canada on a train,
That would be you, right?
We got to start going through some of these questions, and I'm already realizing that with all
I'm
the
done.
number of questions, is that if you want the practice part of this of what I had planned in my head, it's probably going to happen on Monday in my class. So that's incentive to come to my class. I have this whole great thing on patience, for God's sakes, but it looks like there's a lot of really good questions. Wait, so I'm trying to think where it's trying to
It
find.
says, have you ever worked with visual impairments,
Yeah.
paired with physical disability? We've done visual impairments. I don't think we've had someone that has visual impairments and physical disability that I know of, but visual impairment a lot because disability is different for different people. Also, deaf people.
Yeah. Suggestions for navigating airports and rental cars?
Yes.
Do you have any?
Well, airports are tough. They're tough for everybody. Um, I feel that Delta is leading the way. Delta and Southwest to me are the two best right now. Delta has something called white glove service in major cities like Atlanta. And it's literally the person comes out to us when we're checking in and says, hello, what is your name? Oh, Mr. Burns. Okay. And it's like you feel that someone is actually looking at you as a person and looking at your wheelchair. It's not just like thrown on like a piece of luggage. I think they're doing really good. And then Southwest we love Southwest a lot because my husband is always first one on. Uh, I think it sounds bad, but it's like the worse your disability is, you get to go to the front of the line of all the people that have disabilities. So since he's a quad and permanent, he can't stand up or walk at all. He goes to the front of the line, so he always gets to be in seat, 1A and 1B. We're always in the very first, which is nice because it makes it easier to get on and off. My biggest things with airports, know your rights, know the Air Carrier Access Act. That's something passed, maybe it's been a year now, but there's very specific rights that you have. One right is you have the right to not get off that airplane unless your wheelchair is at the front of the airplane, right there at the gate. Like, don't get off your airplane if they're saying, oh, yeah, I'm sure your wheelchair is coming. No, I'm not getting off until my wheelchair is right there. The other thing is, depending on your disability, my husband needs to have someone help him on and off the plane on an aisle chair. So, he's a dependent. They call it dependent lift. And he weighs 220 pounds. And there's been people that show up to transfer him I'm like 5'3", 5'3", two little 5'3" people. And he's like, no, thank you for trying. But, he doesn't even want to try. He's like, thank you. But no, I need someone tall in the back and strong. And so you need to be directive with your care so it's safe for everybody. So he's very directive with how he's treated on and off the airplane. The other thing is if you need to bring extra equipment. For a while there, we were traveling with this other wheelchair attachment that we put in this big box. And so it's considered medical equipment. And you don't have to pay extra for that. So, if you travel with a shower chair you like, you don't have to pay extra for that. So I think getting there early, making sure you've told them when you make your booking, I use a wheelchair. This is the wheelchair I use, for people that use the 450-pound chair all the time. My friend Corey, he's always traveling with his big power chair. Not every airplane can handle that. And it's not because they don't want to, but physically it can't because the cargo hold isn't tall enough. So, it's on you or, your partner, whoever's the person that's taking charge of your equipment to make sure they've, called when they made that reservation a month out saying, here's the dimensions of my chair. That's really important. Take charge of your equipment, let them know, educate them. And then once you're at the airport, make sure you're taking charge of yourself and being treated the way you need to be treated.
Yeah. Then what are the most accessible rental car advice? Do you have any of that?
Well,
That's
rental cars are hard sometimes because, you have to go get on the tram to get to the rental car place. It's just a pain. If you need hand controls, have to make sure they know that at least the week before you get the car and then call 2 days ahead of time. I need hand controls for my car. Some places will bring the car to you, and it all just depends on the airport, the company.
I've done
Um,
that a lot. Yeah, just so you know, like when I used to travel a lot for teaching and it's always hard because you don't know. You try to talk to them about I need a two-door, I need a big enough, I need to be good in my wheelchair. It takes a lot of calls. And if you have to be in a four-door because you're alone, then you have to figure out if it's a big enough four-door to be able to get your wheelchair in. There's a lot of variables. That's and you know no, I'm now more happy going someplace that has like vans that have ramps and you have to organize in advance. It's almost easier not to rent a car at this point. A lot of times when you can avoid it. But you can also rent wheelchair accessible vans. But that's a whole other question we can talk about
yeah,
too. There's
as it's
just
not
a
as much
lot of ins
as
and outs to it.
Judy, I see that you asked, is there a fee to sign up? There is not a fee to sign up for Wheel the World. And what we ask is when you sign up, you make an accessibility profile. And so my husband, when we first found out about Wheel the World, he went on there and it says, what bed height do you want? What shower preference do you want? Do you want a fold down bed? It learns about you, our accessibility profile. So then when you're ready to say, I want to go to New York this weekend, um, and you put your dates in for New York once you signed in, it will automatically populate what the best hotels are for you and say why it's good for you. But the great thing is it also says like just the partially or the adequate ones too. So quick example, my husband and I were going to DC to see my sister. I knew I wanted to stay right by the White House and I knew I wanted a pretty posh hotel and we were only staying one night. So I was able to see the St. Regis. I was able to see what the bed height was and what the shower situation was. Well, my husband wasn't taking a shower. He was only there for one night. So I was like, yes, it only says partial, but I didn't care. So that's where I love our accessibility profile tool because it tells you all the information. It tells you, yeah, this is best based on your profile, but here are the other places, and here's what the accessibility details are around them. So I love that. And then there was another question from Stephanie. What's the most accessible cities, places you've been? Most European accessible city is Barcelona. Barcelona is a massive accessible city. They are doing all sorts of things around accessible travel in their city. We do group trips every year, many group trips to Barcelona. So if you want to start somewhere that's easy, you start in Barcelona. Love it. Madrid is also doing great things, but with it's kind of like now I kind of go to our website and say, okay, where do I want to go? Not where do I want to go in the world and then look at the website. I look at our website first. There's a group trip to South Africa, Greece. I think there might be one in Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, um, and start there instead of doing it the opposite way. And then as far as US cities that are the most accessible, hmm. US cities that are the most accessible. Um, my city where I live is the most accessible city. It's called Alpharetta, Georgia. They have designed this city to be so accessible, so I love where I live because of that. But you know, we New York has come a long way. I still don't think their subway system is great, but cities that have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the WAV, the WAV transportation, wheelchair accessible vehicle with Uber is getting better, and also just accessible taxi systems in cities like Boston, New York. You know, not the whole city is accessible, but they're doing things that are leaning towards more accessibility. One thing Wheel the World is doing, we have a program called Destination Verified where we're going into cities, doing accessibility studies that the city pays us for, and it's helping cities become more accessible. We did this we've done it over in 100 cities across the country, but Tampa Bay and Fort Lauderdale are excelling in accessibility, just kind of some randoms. So I
Right.
wouldn't say it's necessarily the biggest city, it's people that have the heart for it.
Right. And the follow through and the commitment. And in my experience, I've traveled a fair amount in US cities to teach. It's like, well, one doesn't stick way out in front of the other. The fact that like what you're saying that there are now, cabs that have ramps and like there are things that are improving and emerging to improve, but there's still going to be the places you can't get to. There isn't as much. One thing what little I've traveled in Europe, and it was mostly London, they do kind of assign you a person when you go to a place and they try to help you. That's not something that I found ever in the United States. But
Yeah.
you also had to have, they weren't, every bathroom wasn't accessible. You had to go and get the key to the one accessible bathroom in the this and the that when I was in, London. So it's just different. They just do it.
Yeah.
Europe
One
does
thing
it differently.
One thing that we're
Europe's
doing in
older.
the States with these accessibility verified destinations. So, for instance, the state of Oregon is the first state that has got the destination verified certification from Wheel the World. We've been into over 350 places in Oregon. That's hotels, restaurants, activities, things to do. And we have a landing page so you can go and see everything that's accessible in Oregon. And we've done these amazing video projects. It's people tree climbing in their wheelchairs, kayaking, mountain climbing, like all sorts of interesting stuff. But also, just taking a tour down the coast of Oregon and here's the best restaurants that are accessible. So it kind of takes the guesswork out of accessibility when you have these suggested itineraries that we're starting to do a lot. But Oregon, so impressed with everything they are doing for accessibility. They really are like leading it. Colorado is doing a ton. Um, and I think Florida would probably be the third state that's really doing a lot for accessibility.
So just so like honestly, not that I want to dig into this part of it too much, 'cause we have to close up here soon, but um how do you all make your money? I kind of want to make sure something like Wheel of the
Yeah.
World, like your business model kind of worries me because you're doing so much.
No,
And
so
from the
we
travel booked, you get a part of the travel booked, or what, how do you?
So we make a percentage from the group trips. Like we make pennies, like honestly pennies from the hotel portion. It's kind of like how does Expedia make money from hotels? It's volume. And so one day, we're banking on it will be volume from the hotels, but right now we make pennies from hotels. Um, we make a small percentage from the group trips and I think it's 15% from group trips and the multi-day tours, which is, just Bert and I say, hey, let's go to Madrid. Let's book things in Madrid that Wheel the World does. Um, but a big portion that we have found the past 2 years that has really added a ton of revenue is cities where, Tampa Bay says, we want you to come in, do accessibility studies. We do a massive study. We have an app where they get to see how they're doing, where they could improve. And then if the city says we want to do a media project, we bring a person with a disability in there. They get to see all the best things in that area. And then we share it on all of our socials so people can see how Tampa Bay is doing for accessibility and help promote their destination.
Got to
So,
make sure everyone's like you guys stay in business, right? I mean, honestly, I
oh,
mean,
I
this really
agree.
is. This is like a collective
Yeah.
issue, right? I
No,
mean,
it,
so
I hear you
like,
100%. But the business to business component that we're doing with all of these cities is
mm,
really
good.
allowing us to do so much more
That's all.
um, to develop our consumer side, if that makes sense.
All right. All right. Very cool. Well, I can't tell you how grateful I am for this presentation. I feel a little bit guilty because for me personally, it's like a weird level of hope coming through. Maybe all of you knew about stuff like this, but I didn't all the way. Kind of thought because the thing about experience traveling with disability is that you get jaded over
I
so
know.
many trips that only borderline work. Right. And I know that Wheel the World can't solve all the problems. It's still going to be hard. The class I was going to lead was on patience, but recognizing that you need patience to travel, but way more than that accessing what we might call resilience or follow through. Patience is being able to find spaces both in your body and around you when things are having to take time, right? So I was going to teach this whole thing about realizing space in your body, activating the space before you go on a trip in your
Mm,
body. Being able, if you think patience is a mental thing, you've kind of missed about two-thirds of what real patience is.
mm,
Patience, being able to be in the space you are and then seeing texture and spaces in your surroundings in any environment, right? Not just waiting. Patience isn't waiting. So that's what the class will be more about on Monday. But this was so good, and there was enough questions where I didn't want to interrupt the flow. So, Joy, again, thank you so much. You'll be hearing from me. I hope people will take advantage of it, and I hope we pass this on to, we get a lot of watches on replay and video, but holy cow, we should try to get this out to people, within
absolutely.
our group.
If I could say action items, number one, join my accessible travel community on Facebook because you're going to learn a lot from people and see what people are doing. Number two, um, go to our website and just dream. Don't think about how things cost. Just like dream. Let yourself see, wow, where you might go. And the third thing is, who knows? Maybe um, yeah, the Mind Body Solutions group, this could be a group trip. It's our group trips only have four people plus four companions. And so they're small. And I can only imagine how incredible that would be of doing a group trip like that here. Corey Lee has just done one where we our partner of ours is Virgin Atlantic Virgin Voyages, and he has eight people with eight companions going on a Virgin cruise, and it's fun because he's going to do like little breakouts. And what an incredible thing that you guys could do here of doing a one of our Virgin Voyage, 4-day cruises out of Miami and do breakout sessions during your cruise. That would just be amazing.
The
So
other
there's
thing too, on the other way, organizationally, and Joy, we should talk about this offline, is the stuff I was talking about. Preparing for travel might be good for your 40,000 people in your community.
mm,
Like to be able to add a mind body component to even the travel and what you're doing, because it's not just about courage, it's not just about mental will. There are a lot of things you can do that your body can support when you're going through all sorts of spaces and travels and unknown, which is just good for any human being to know, not just people with disability. So this is
absolutely.
so we'll talk more, Joy. You'll be hearing from me. Everybody, thanks for coming. This has been I'm trying to get better and better about ending nearly on time. I always show up a little late because that's me. It's a chip that they inserted into my brain. It's not my fault. Somebody snuck it in there. But Joy, again, thanks again. We'll be in touch, and everybody, peace on, keep going. Thanks for all the information.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch, Joey. Thank you.